Let me share the screen with you. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So in the first part of the class, we have looked into the types of bilingual education in the United States, and also one of very important factors to serve the needs of bilingual students are to decide how close the languages between first language and second language, how close it is in terms of linguistic structure and cultural structure. In this article, we will look into the theories behind the design of the types of bilingual education that that we are implementing in the United States. So this is the theory behind that, and not just only from the linguistics perspective, but also in the cognitive perspective and instructional perspective. So that is the aim of this article that can contribute to our conversation so far. So the article name is 3 Theories of the Effects of Language Education Programs, an empirical evaluation of bilingual and English-only policies. So right away, we can know that at this moment of speaking, we have 3 theories that underline the design of bilingual education programs. So that is like a takeaway message. And what I'm going to do is, again, I will talk about the background, the context of the study, why we need this study. Second, I will talk about the 3 theories, and let's just consider myself as a storyteller, because I'm gonna ask you guys which theory makes more sense to you, which one that you will advocate for it as a bilingual educator. And I'll go to the research questions that this study looked into, the study itself, the result, the implication, and we will wrap it up with some question and answer. So basically, long time ago, you can see that in 1974, we have the situation that bring to court, basically arguing that students who do not know English are effectively foreclosed from any meaningful education. So basically, the immigrant kids coming to the United States, we can observe that they encounter a lot of struggle and obstacle when it's come to mainstream education. And the reason at that time is because they do not know English. So after this decisions, there are 2 solutions that are being proposed. The first solution is they don't know English, let's teach them English. So that is when we have intensive program to teach them English and maximize their exposure to English. And in the first part of the class, we know that is called structured English immersions. And it can be in different format, like you pull them out after class, or you will have separate ESL classes outside class, right? Like pull out, or you will have something called shelter instruction. It means the students are there in class, intensively expose themselves to the English-only environment. That is the first solution. The second solution is let's use the children's first language to help them keep up academically in the school subject at the same time when they learn English. So it means that they try to use the first language in some way in order to help the kids to learn English at the same time and try to catch up with what is going on. However, the question is that, so are we going to learn in both languages at the same time? Or the first language gonna be reduced gradually, and then the second language gonna increase throughout the time? So which one? So from these 2 types of responses, a lot of empirical evaluation come up, and the conclusion is that Developmental bilingual education programs were effective at promoting children's academic achievement. So academic achievement is literacy in English and also mathematics and, like content area learning. So that is considered academic achievement. So bilingual education were more effective than transitional early exit bilingual education program. So that is the consensus. But again, when we talk about bilingual education, you know that it's an umbrella term, right? We have different types. We have the strong type, we have the weak type with different outcome. We have biliteracy outcome, and we also have the monolingualism outcome, right? So it's still bilingual education, but in which way that it will benefit these bilingual kids in the long run. That is the focus of this article. So we have 3 theories to underlie the design of the program. The first theory is called transfer theory. And basically, can you tell me what do you see in this visual? It's from Cumins. We may or may not have known him, but we did talk about him a lot in this class, right? So can you tell me what do you see in the picture? Devindi?
Yeah, sure. So for both languages, there is something common. So that is, as the professor highlighted, it's not like conceptual, but in the article, I read something about conceptual as well in his theory. That's basically it.
All right, so you will see that this is like an iceberg. We have the surface level, which is the basic interpersonal communication skill. It means that the student can use, daily language to describe a concept. That is basically the conceptual knowledge that he touched upon, like very slightly, saying that the bilingual kids can talk about a concept through their daily observation. So that is everything on the surface. They need the proficiency in terms of pronunciation, vocab, grammar in English language in order to talk about that. But this is just a surface level. We also have the level, that deep down is called cognitive academic language proficiency. But you will see that for Cumins, he used the terminology proficiency, which he's vaguely described. And most of the time, it is about the cognitive abilities and the linguistic knowledge more than the conceptual knowledge. And I will show you why it's different. So basically, let's focus on Cumins for now. For Cumins, the cognitive academic language proficiency include the abilities to analyze, synthesize, and evaluate knowledge. Okay, so that's purely cognitive abilities. And he assumed that if you have that cognitive ability in the first language, it will also support the second language and how you learn the second language knowledge, linguistically speaking. Okay, so basically he's saying that it's very important to teach the bilingual kids the second language linguistic knowledge, because it will also affect their cognitive functioning and cognitive learning. Second, the first language cognitive and linguistic knowledge can be applied and support the second linguistic and cognitive learning. Okay, so that's exactly what he say. So he hypothesized that in order for a bilingual education to be successful, you need to know the threshold in which their bilingual development will be beneficial in the long run. So let's take a look at this threshold hypothesis. Okay, Caitlin, can you help us to tell to tell us what do you see from the picture?
From the picture, there are about 3 different levels. And the biggest one is the level of bilingualism, obviously obtained. And then it progresses down into what would represent dominant semilingualism. Does that help you? Do you want me to elaborate more?
Yes, so let's go with the semi-lingualism. What happened at that stage?
In that stage, you have a low level in both languages, maybe balanced or dominant, but it's having a negative cognitive effect to you. And that lower threshold level of bilingual competence of your control of both languages.
Perfect. So basically, if the bilingual kids come and they have low level, linguistic level of both languages, they haven't developed first language yet, and they also have very low proficiency of English language, then their bilingualism gonna be very shaky, and you need to decide if you want to turn that person into a bilingual, biliterate kid, or just, go with the monolingual path to make him or her crowded in one language first. But if the first threshold has not been met, that's very problematic. That's so challenging. And you need to decide which program will suit more. Okay, Caitlin, can you help me with the second threshold? A little bit promising.
The dominant bilingual.
Yes.
So native like level in one of the languages, and then it makes sense that there's neither positive or negative cognitive effects because they actually have control of one language, and then they have the ability to build off of that. So unlike the bottom level one, it's negative because there's no control of either language, so there's nothing to go off of. And then you have that higher threshold level of bilingual competence. So you have a greater ability to obtain.
Yes. So when the kids come, you assess him or her, and you think that, okay, maybe the second threshold is okay. It means just a little bit scaffolding of the second language, but basically the first language, linguistic knowledge, and also cognitive abilities in the first language, So not just only they know the linguistic knowledge of their first language, their mother tongue, but they can also function academically using the first language. Then it's promising. We can, like Caitlin say, build on that and just have some scaffolding in the second language to help. And that can push the student to a DT bilingualism. And that is where the strong bilingual education types come in, that they can be the outcome of biliterate and bicultural to a certain extent, but at least biliterate in academic setting. And that's where you have positive cognitive effects. It means they can function cognitively, cognitively good, in the second language itself. So the threshold theory hypothesized 2 thresholds that can put a negative cognitive effects or positive cognitive effect. Okay. Now, this is the implication of threshold hypothesis. Yinkong, can you help me with what you see on the slide? Just kind of read it and we will ponder about it.
Right, sure. The threshold hypothesis: students whose academic proficiency in the language of instruction is relatively weak will tend to fall further and further behind unless the instruction they receive enables them to comprehend and input both written and oral and participate academically in class. In learning a second language, a certain minimum threshold level of proficiency must be reached in that language before the learner can benefit from the use of the language as a medium of instruction in school.
Yes, that means if you don't help the student to improve the proficiency in English, he will be lost because he doesn't know what the teacher is talking about. He couldn't understand, he couldn't comprehend the language of instruction because he lacked the proficiency in English. And because he lacked the linguistic proficiency, he will have a lot of trouble with the cognitive task. You remember last class we talked about cognitively demanding and cognitively undemanding. So if the language, the linguistic knowledge is not there yet, he couldn't even function with cognitive undemanding tasks because he basically lost with the linguistic aspect. So Cumins basically really highlight the importance of linguistic proficiency. So, but he point out these important things. First of all, BICS, it means interactional abilities, interactive language, and CALP, which is cognitive academic proficiency. It means the student can basically understand how to navigate some learning tasks in English language are very important. And we should make a distinction because, again, a student can very fluent in English during the interaction, but may have difficulty to function in a task. So that is his contribution. He pointed it out that we need to separate them and they are both important. Second, we learn from him that learners that are allowed to use their language for most of at least elementary school experience will show cognitive and academic advantages over their monolingual peers. It means, if you remember Kathleen's elaboration on the threshold, it means that if you allow the kids to have the elementary experience, at least in their first language, when they come to the United States, they can meet at least the second threshold, which is, let's take a look at it again, which is the dominant bilingualism. So it will be easier to move to additive bilingualism. Okay, so that is the second contribution of this theory. So that is the first theory. The second theory is developed by MacSwan and Rolstad, basically come to critique the threshold theory in the following part. First, he said that Cumins talk about academic knowledge, but academic knowledge is very different than the content knowledge. So content knowledge is characterized as part of our underlying cognitive and academic proficiency that is common across languages, rather than discretely represented and context-dependent conceptual knowledge. And knowledge of the school subject and other topic is distinct from linguistic knowledge and not part of our linguistic development. So I want you to think about whether you agree or disagree with him. Do you think the knowledge of the subject matter, for example, physics, geography, math, would be distinct and different than linguistic development, which is grammar, basically? Grammar knowledge or let's say vocab knowledge? They should be two MacSwan, it's totally two different things. And Cumins didn't say anything about the content knowledge. So transfer knowledge, he defined the word what transfer mean. He said that transfer referred to the accessibility of information across linguistic domain in the central processes and made available to the language system. So in this sense, transfer in bilingual is not different from knowledge accessed in monolinguals. So basically, he's saying that we should make a distinction between linguistic knowledge and content knowledge, which linguistic knowledge, we can pull the student out of the mainstream class and scaffold them, but it's not enough. At the same time, it's very important to push them in a content learning class where they are immersed in the content learning inside a classroom with their American peers, with their monolingual peers, so that, you know, their conceptual base is gonna be developed in terms of subject matter. So let me give an example. So look at what's happening in this physics class. Students need to observe and describe a phenomenon. So which linguistic means are necessary for a English language learner to describe this phenomenon precisely. Observe the phenomenon and describe it in every language. Use what you observe and use your best foreign language. So basically, if we apply Cumins, we know that this task use bigs, right? Like the teacher asks the student to describe what they see in front of them in everyday language. And you can use your first language. That's it, bigs. With CALP, it means that the student understand what the activity of describe means. So cognitively speaking, they know that describe it means you give the information about what you see and the interaction or relationship of the object and element you are looking at. That is the activity of describing. However, with the transfer theory, Maxwan say that actually it's not enough. The English language learner will still struggle because they don't have the content knowledge. So that's why when you give all the words, like the vocab, as you see on the screen on your right side, it's not enough. Because with Maxwan, he's saying that actually the student need to be taught about the basic concept in physics. For example, what is interaction? What is Poisson force? So that he or she can observe and describe the phenomenon. The linguistic means the proficiency that Cumins is talking with the word level, sentence level, text level is not enough. The cognitive level as the level of expectation is not enough. The content knowledge is what even more important in the definitions of the transfer theory of Maxwan. So he said that multilingual speakers have an underlying integrated language system with both shared and discrete linguistic resources. And he's saying that when you go to an ESL class, you can see the share and the discrete across language. You will see how Chinese is different than English. What is shared and what is different. But what is more important is the conceptual learning of the subject matter. So for instructional purposes, languages for the bilingual kids should be used separately or together for the subject matter conceptualization. So that would be helpful if we can have not teaching the two languages separately, like in a dual language program, but it would be very helpful to let the student use code switching, translation, and other syncretic processes, depending on the teacher objective to help students learn the subject conceptual knowledge. So he redefined, and that's what he called expand on Cumins' theory, is that CALP is not just only cognitive academic tasks, but also content knowledge. And the content knowledge is kind of overlooked, but in practice, content knowledge is very important. Okay, so the third theory is called time on task. With this theory, it says that the more time children spend hearing, speaking, or studying English, the higher their level of second language proficiency will be. And because the more time they immerse in the target language, it will in turn translate into a higher score on academic achievement. The time on task theory does not distinguish between learning a language and learning school content in a language. So please, in the chat box, can you please say which theory do you most align with? Threshold theory, transfer theory, or time on task theory? Okay, that's very interesting to me. Okay, so we are kind of agree that it's very important to distinguish the cognitive task from the conceptual subject matter knowledge, right? So basically, we more align with Maxwan and his emphasis on training bilingual kids to understand the conceptual and subject matter related in addition to just linguistic learning. Some of us say that actually two theory makes sense because time and exposure is very important too. So actually some of us also align with time on task. Okay, let's look into the study to see what is the result to test the three theories. So Yinkong, can you please help me with the first research question?
Right. Threshold hypothesis. Do both Spanish language proficiency and English language proficiency predict academic achievement measured in English?
Okay, guys. So with threshold, we only talk about language proficiency. Okay, so the research question is that as well. Yingru, please help me with the transfer theory.
Okay, transfer theory. Does Spanish literacy in particular contribute over and above English language proficiency to the prediction of academic achievement measured in English?
Okay, so you can see that if we align with transfer theory, we're talking about the literacy domain. It means subject matters is really important as well. So not just only the vocab surface, not just only the cognitive level of the activity itself, but also the conceptualization of the scientific terminology, right? And with time on task, Fang Wang, can you help me with that?
Is English language proficiency sufficient as a predictor of academic achievement measured in English, reflecting English-only approaches of the time-on-task theory?
Yes, so with time on task theory, we will just keep the student immersed in the English-only approaches so they can catch up with the academic achievement in English. Okay, so the study include 196 participants, and they were educated in a variety of minority language educational programs. I think this is also the weakness of the study is they try to test the theory, which theory makes sense, right? But they don't classify the bilingual student in terms of the programs they are being trained. So it's a little bit concerning to me, but basically they kind of see this group as a group of bilingual students, but some of the student is from the ESL program, some of the student is from the bilingual education, some of them is in dual language immersion, and some of them is in shelter. So basically all 196 is in one group, and they are they measure the student in terms of BICS. So you can see that in the oral language proficiency and grammar, right? It's just the BICS level and the linguistic proficiency level, vocab level, which is still, capped with a linguistic proficiency level. But they also measure the literacy level, the literacy ability of the student through reading, literacy ability through reading and through math as well. And this is easier for us to see. So basically they test first language, oral language, and vocab, which is first language proficiency. They also test first language literacy through reading. They also measure second language proficiency through reading, through vocab. That is the B-body activity. It means the teacher will show the kids a picture story, and the kids will point at the pictures and utter elicits the vocab, and also telling the story in the second language. So that is second language proficiency. And they will also measure the academic achievement in second language through reading, language, and mathematics. If you see there is a star next to the number, it means it plays a statistically significant role in academic achievement in second language. So let's try. Yingru, can you tell me the first element? Let me do it. Let me do the first one for you first, and then you can do the second. So if you look at this, you can say that the first language literacy will help the student to develop the oral language in the oral language ability in their first language too. Okay, Yingru.
Okay, so the second language proficiency will help the student develop the first oral language and also has an interactional influence with the first language literacy.
Exactly.
And-
So the first language oral ability will help with the second language proficiency. Yes.
Right.
Okay. And I think Yingru also mentioned this. Yes, the first language literacy will help with the second language proficiency. And last one is the second language proficiency will help the academic achievement in the second language. So in total, in summary, we can say something like this. The language sample measure were minimally correlated with the achievement outcome. It means if you just touch on the interaction of the base level of the student, even they are fluent, they may have still challenging to learn academic to help to successfully to be successful in academic achievement. However, English reading comprehension and vocab more strongly correlated with academic achievement measure. It means if the students are very literate in the second language, so the literacy knowledge is strong, then they will have strong academic achievement. And if they have the literacy, not just proficiency, but the literacy in the first language, then it can significantly predict their academic achievement in English over and above English language proficiency. So the implication of this study is, of course, it showed that it supports the transfer theory. So it say that to a certain extent, if children receive a minimum of 2 years of schooling in their first language literacy, and then from there, at the same time, develop their native language literacy, they are more likely to be able to learn and develop academic proficiency and literacy in second language. So the instruction should focus on the first language development, attending to the vocab and grammar in the first language rather than just immerse the student in the first language. So using first language is not enough. You need to explicitly teach them vocab and grammar in the first language so that they can transfer that to the second language. The third implication is the first language development needs to precede second language teaching until a developmental threshold is met before you introduce the second language as a focus of instruction. And this theory conceptualizes the first language as a very important vehicle to learn content knowledge. So literacy is a domain of language use specific to school setting and does not represent a further stage of linguistic development as is commonly believed. So this is what Maxwan highlight is when the bilingual kids come, it's very important to just continue the focus of instruction in the first language until a threshold is met, and let's bring the second language in. If you cannot do that in practice, then at least use the children emerging bilingualism holistically by encourage them to use their full linguistic repertoire, suggesting that students can code switch, can translate, can use their home language as a resource to learn subject matter concept until they can make a leap and just focus on second language only. Now, my question to you, do you agree? And because here he's talking about using the language in a kind of the whole linguistic repertoire, right? So basically when we think of the first part of the class, we basically have dual language. It means we teach the language still separately, right? Nowhere in the first part we are saying that we need to let these kids use the full linguistic repertoire. But do you think it is a good suggestion? I mean, you should take our translanguaging class, but that would be another issue. But what do you think about it? Okay, so my question to you is, at the end of this presentation, do you still align with the transfer theory? Especially, you know, this study proved that the first language instruction to promote first language literacy is so important, and even more important than developing second language proficiency right away. Is very important. So do you agree with that? If you want to apply this in your teaching, how can you apply that? What do you think about the first questions? After hearing, you know, transfer theory, are you feel persuaded by that? Yes, Kathleen.
I kind of have a question.
Yep.
So my understanding is that a lot of this experiment does support the entire threshold, obviously. Like a lot of the kids, if they don't have grasp of their L1, they're obviously going to struggle with the L2. But my understanding of the transfer theory, like in this experiment, there wasn't much writing done, right?
Exactly.
We're like that would, I don't even think you can then compare that theory to this, because without any writing completed, you truthfully don't know their in-depth understanding of the content.
Well, that is really interesting question. Yeah. So first of all, I'm very concerned about how the study is set up, you know, like putting everyone in one basket. Second, yeah, I think you make a good point. So when we look at how this study measured the achievement assessed in second language, it's just reading. I think language here is kind of unclear to me, like whether they also look at just the vocab knowledge, like proficiency level, right? But is it just vocab, or like Caitlin say, like writing, but writing about a scientific concept, for example, right? So it didn't mention in the text. And mathematics is more like a numeric. I think they are saying like, okay, with mathematics, it's more like a subject matter assessment in writing. But again, it's not the same with writing in English language for, like, let's say an essay about a topic or an argumentative essay, you know? So I think that also a limitation of this study as well.
And like, if I can add to that, when I think about when you're doing certain things like this, you read something, a lot of that is just, like you mentioned, I think surface level understanding, rather than going beneath the iceberg and hoping that those students get a grasp of what they know, versus just within their academic achievement, can you like take that piece of information and just put it there and not give a full understanding of what you're doing.
Yes. So basically in this class, we are studying about, you know, different types of education. But at the end of the day, when we have the kids in our class that is kind of struggling, you know, so you have basically two choices. And the first choice is let these kids use the home language mixed with the second language until they conceptually competent in the second language only. The second choice is kind of immerse them in the second language, hopefully that they will catch up. And I think the third choice is mentioned here in the transfer theory is let's just explain the conceptual understanding in the first language until their proficiency in the second language is secure. Which one makes sense to you, right? So that is Caitlin's understanding about this. How about others? Do you have anything to intervene? Which one you think would be better options? Elizabeth, what do you think?
As far as the theories, I think it does make sense if they're following the threshold theory to say that the students need to achieve that developmental level. So like the second of the 3 thresholds to really achieve that literacy in the first language that will help them do better in their second language. Yeah, so that's for the threshold theory, I guess.
Yes, so if you look at how the bilingual program are set up, right? You still see that the 2 languages are kind of separated, or one language is, it look more into the proficiency rather than the content, subject and content knowledge. So when you look at into, let's say ESL pull out class, MacSwan just warned that, you know, the scaffolding in the terms of linguistics is not enough. Your material needs to connect with what the kids are learning in the content area classes. So I don't know if you see that there's a lack or a gap there in real world teaching, like we are discussing. And if that is the case, then in a content class, we should use the student whole linguistic repertoire. Do you agree with that? Like the student can code switch, the student can use the first language to learn the second language content. What do you think about this? Yingru?
I do agree with that using translanguaging if it is a content course, especially. Yeah. Because for language course, we do have some language objectives. That's why I mentioned the time on task theory. Yeah. So, but for content course, I think the major objective is for them to perceive the concept, the academic concept behind it, so that they can get a deeper understanding with the phenomenon. That's just the language level. So I do agree with using translanguaging or various kind of resources help them to make themselves understood or understand all the materials. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. I think yes, Yingkong.